What's up, everyone? It's Nicky Young. Today I'm going to be doing a 2-round mock draft. And normally I would just be doing it as the team I'm a fan of, which is the Vikings, but I'm not going to do that because, that's favoritism. So I'm going to do a mock draft with all the teams. So we're going to do 2 rounds here. Alright. So to start it off, I'm pretty sure it's well known by literally everyone that, Joe Burrow he's going to go to the Bengals because, they need a quarterback. They could go Chase Young. I can see that happening since he's the, technically viewed by most people, he is the number 1 prospect in the entire draft, and I'm pretty sure that is true because I agree with it as well. But I definitely think that they're going to go Joe Burrow here, the Heisman winner from LSU. I don't think anything else is going to change there. I could see another team trading up to get it like the Dolphins, but, I don't think that that's really just going to happen at all because the Bengals aren't going to give up their space for Joe Burrow. However, there are a bunch of quarterbacks on here that they could take like Jordan Love, but that's not the point. All right, with the Redskins, I'm not really sure what they're going to do here. I'm pretty sure, actually, you know what? I was going to say they would trade here, but I can't really do trades on this because I don't have premium on TDN's mock draft. So I'm just going to go with Chase Young then because, number 1 prospect. They need an edge rusher, and he happens to be the best prospect in the entire draft, and he's an edge, so it's almost perfect for them. So you can pair him up with Montez Sweat, and they'd have a nice edge rushing core. So they got Chase Young out of Ohio State. Here we have the Detroit Lions. Now, I definitely think that if I was able to do trades on this, I might do an episode with trades after this. But I'm pretty sure, they need a cornerback. They got rid of Darius Slay. So I'm pretty certain they're going to get Jeff Okudah. Otherwise, I can see the Dolphins trading up and trying to get Tua. I don't understand why they would do that, though, even though since they're ahead of the Chargers and they're behind these 2 teams who both don't really need a quarterback at all. So the Lions are going to take Jeffrey Okudah out of Ohio State, best cornerback in the class. Now here we have the Giants. I'm torn between 2 paths here because I know that they need offensive linemen, but I do think that Isaiah Simmons is a very good pick for them since, he's such a defensive threat. They do need a linebacker and a safety, and he happens to play both of them pretty dang well. So, he's kind of a hybrid defender, and I think that he, in the end, will be a really high overall pick, possibly top 5. But I think the Giants do end up going with Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa. He's kind of just proved himself as the best offensive tackle in my mind. People have viewed Mekhi Becton as the best, but I think that his combine was great, but, he's kind of just this monster of a human who, 6'7", 369, as you can see right here. He's just a monster of a human, so he would be a great offensive tackle, but, I think Tristan Wirfs fits along well with the Giants as well, so I think they go with him. Here we have the Dolphins. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what's going to happen here. This is kind of a locked-in pick, a pick that everyone else is kind of just thinking is going to happen as well. They're going to take Tua. I don't really need to explain it. You understand why. I understand why. Everyone knows. For this pick, I'm going to be straight up honest. I don't think that the Chargers are going to take Justin Herbert. I think I've seen a lot of drafts that think the same, and a lot of people who think the exact same as I do. I just don't think that I don't think Justin Herbert has, there's a risk with him. Same thing with Tua, but, the Dolphins were going for him since the beginning of the season, so they knew who they were targeting. But Justin Herbert kind of came out late in the year. He hasn't really proved that he's a great quarterback, but I think that You know, I think he'll fall quite far in the draft is what I'm trying to say. I think his upside is fine, but it's obviously not as high as other quarterbacks in the draft. So for the Chargers, I think it's kind of a hard pick. They're going to take an offensive lineman here no matter what. It's just between Becton and Thomas for me, and I think they go with Andrew Thomas out of Georgia, just because Becton, you know, it would be nicer to see him with a little more strength, even though he is just kind of a monster of a human, like I said. But Andrew Thomas is a wonderful blocker, almost as big as Becton, not quite, but, you know, he can get the job done just as well, if not better. Here we have the Carolina Panthers, and at this point, I think it's clear that the Panthers need interior defensive linemen, and Derek Brown fits that perfectly. He's a really good player in this draft. He's a 5-star recruit. Interior defensive lineman, he's absolute monster. I absolutely see him going here. But I'm debating between him and Isaiah Simmons, because at this point Isaiah Simmons is just a steal with everything that's been happening in this draft so far. It kind of seems like Isaiah Simmons is just an absolute steal at this spot, but I'm going to still say that they go Derek Brown. I think they stick with their guns and they go with what they need the most. So yeah. Here's where I think things get a little rough. I think the Cardinals do need an offensive lineman, and there are two of them. There's two tackles right here. And I do like Jedrick Wills a little more than Mekhi Becton, and that's why I'm going to give the Cardinals Jedrick Wills. The offensive tackle out of Alabama, he's just an absolute unit of a blocker. He can do everything. He's strong. He's got a beautiful haircut, as you can see right here. Yeah, I think they go with Jedrick Wills there to fill up their offensive tackle spot. And here's where we get to the Jags. And I don't think that Isaiah Simmons, you know, they don't need Isaiah Simmons at all. But I think at this point it's just they're at their needs right now. They can wait a little while longer. And with Isaiah Simmons coming this far down and the next few picks coming up, I think they can't really just give up on him, because some of these guys back here who need defenders might go for Isaiah Simmons as a, you know, just as a absolute, like, he's just a really good value at this spot. So although they don't need him as much as they need other positions, their positions that they need right now are, you know, kind of, they got time. There's a lot of depth here with these positions, so they got time for that. But you know, on the other hand, I could actually see them taking Javon Kinlaw. And now that I think about it, I feel like that's a better pick than Isaiah Simmons, even though, you know, I don't know. I really don't know at this point. I'm gonna give him Kinlaw. I think they can use Kinlaw more, actually, since they have interior defensive line. Isaiah Simmons is, yeah, he's great and everything, but they definitely need some interior defensive linemen. I think Javon Kinlaw is an amazing prospect, and he'll fit in perfectly there out of South Carolina. Next we have the Browns, and like I said, they need a linebacker more desperately than the Jags do. So I think at this point, value is value. They do need a tackle pretty dang bad. You can find some good offensive linemen down here like Isaiah Wilson. So at this point, I think they're just going to go with value is value, and I think they go with Isaiah Simmons here out of Clemson. Although they don't really need a linebacker as much as they need an offensive tackle, there is offensive tackle in this draft, and they can also, like I said, they can trade that pick away, or, you know, do whatever they may be, try to trade up to get one of those better offensive tackles, but I can't do trades in this draft, so we're sticking with Isaiah Simmons for the Browns because that's insane value where it is at 10. The Jets, a lot of people have the Jets taking a wide receiver. I don't think they're taking a wide receiver. It's on recording software. So we're back here at the Jets. A lot of people have them taking a wide receiver. I don't. I think they definitely need some protection for Sam Darnold, because Darnold is, he needs protection because he does have wide receivers who get down the field quick. With the loss of Robbie Anderson, they still have a few wide receivers that they can, use for the time being. Otherwise, like I said, the draft class is very deep in the wide receiver section, so they could take a snag later on in the draft for a wide receiver. But here I have them taking Mekhi Becton out of Louisville. I think he's a perfect fit with them. He'll do really well protecting Darnold in New York. Next we have the Raiders. I think a lot of people have them taking a wide receiver, and I think they're right because they definitely need one. John Gruden's always wanted to pair up Tyrell Williams with a star wide receiver, so it definitely makes sense to do that. So I have CeeDee Lamb going to Las Vegas. I think that he can play really well with the ball after the catch. He's dynamic on the field. He can do a lot of stuff. He's not my number one wide receiver in this class. Jerry Jeudy is my number one, but I definitely think that CeeDee Lamb is, he would fit better in Las Vegas because of their play style there and Derek Carr. He's definitely a decent quarterback, enough to get the ball down the field, and Lamb is quick and can get there, and he can go up and get it. So I have CeeDee Lamb going to Las Vegas. Here's the 49ers. A lot of them will also have them taking wide receiver. I don't think they need to, since, like I said, this wide receiver class is very, very deep. So here I have them taking the number 2 corner in the draft class, which is C.J. Henderson out of Florida. He's very good in coverage. He can do everything. He can pair up right next to Richard Sherman and then have a beautiful secondary adding on to their insane defense that stopped Vikings in their track to the Super Bowl. We're not going to talk about that. Anyways, C.J. Henderson goes to the 49ers. Perfect fit there. Patches up another cornerback need. And he'll fit right next to Richard Sherman, the veteran. He can learn stuff from him and then, maybe develop into another Richard Sherman in the future. Next I have Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At this point, they are kind of screwed over here. They don't really have a lot of choice. They don't really have a lot of choice here for offensive tackles. The offensive line's been picked over. They could go with one of these guys up here, but I'm actually going to do a little surprise. That is not a smart idea at all, because that's not, these guys last for a while, but they definitely need a running back that would finish off their offense perfectly with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Tom Brady. They got those three, and they just need to finish it off with a nice running back, and definitely the best running back in the class is DeAndre Swift, without a doubt. And I think they could stick him right in there, and they'll have a nice offense to start the season off. And maybe DeAndre Swift will show up to be a really good player in the future. But for now, I have him going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to play alongside Tom Brady. Now I have the Broncos, and the Broncos absolutely need a wide receiver. I can understand why people want that to happen. It makes total sense to me. So I think at this point they definitely can use someone like Henry Ruggs III out of Alabama. He's really quick. He can get down the field super fast. He's got all the he's got everything you'd need in a wide receiver who want to go deep, and he can pair along Sutton perfectly. Sutton's a nice big physical wide receiver, and on the other side they can have Ruggs tearing up the field at the end, and it'll be a perfect fit there in Denver. And I know a lot of Denver Broncos fans are already excited to have Ruggs on the team, and I can understand that. So next up we got the Falcons. They need some defense. They need quite a lot of defense. Don't need a running back because they have Todd Gurley now, so I don't know why that's on there. I can see him staying there for a while. That's not the point. They need some defense. And, you know, there are some solid defenders in this class. And, you know, they need a cornerback. Interior defensive line's kind of been screwed over a little bit here. I mean, Neville Gallimore's there. He's a great player, but, you know, they definitely need a corner, and there are better corners on the board right now than there are interior defensive linemen. You can get those guys later. So I think that with this pick, they go with, I think they might prefer a more experienced corner who is also, I believe, taller. Nope, they're the same height. Christian Fulton's a little more physical as it is. He's a little bigger, and I think the Falcons might like that. So I think they go with Christian Fulton over Jeff Gladney. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys, and I think that the Dallas Cowboys need defense as well. I don't think they go with corner, though, because, you know, they don't need corners yet. There are more corners to come later on in the draft. There are some good ones like, you know, Jalen Johnson and Noah Igbenogany. So for now, I think they go with the best safety available, since they definitely need a safety, and they drop it on Xavier McKinney out of Alabama. He's a great player. He's 6'1", 200 pounds. He can fit in perfectly where he is in Dallas, and I think that could go a long way for them. So next I have the Miami Dolphins, and the Miami Dolphins need offensive tackles, offensive linemen in general, and I think they could definitely benefit from a guy like Isaiah Wilson. They need offensive linemen, like I had just said, and he's clearly the best one on there right now. And I think that they can snag someone like one of these guys later on in the draft. They have the 26th pick, so you know they can go for a guy like Cesar Ruiz. So I think for now that they go with I'm gonna say Josh Jones out of Houston. I think that he's playing he's proved himself a little more than Isaiah Wilson. Isaiah Wilson's just recently crept up a little bit in the rankings. He's a very big dude, but I think Josh Jones, he's got some room to develop. He's got more ceiling space, and yeah, so I think that's what they go with there. So next we have not Oakland, Las Vegas. They're back on the clock, and they go with a defender, and I think they might. Yeah, they definitely do. I'm gonna say they go with, where is he? Jeff Gladney out of TCU. He's a good fit for them. They need a corner. He's just perfect where he is, and now the Las Vegas Raiders have a beautiful draft lined up for them with CeeDee Lamb and Jeff Gladney. So yeah, I think that plays out well for them. Next up we have the Jags, and I think that the Jags also need defense, and looking at the board here, the corners have been picked over. Gladney, Fulton, CJ Henderson, and of course Okudah are already off the board. So they also need safety, and there happens to be a man by the name of Grant Delpit still on the board. So I think they can benefit from more defense. I think they can find a corner later on, since they're kind of falling down in the draft board a little bit. So I definitely think that they go with Grant Delpit here at LSU. All right. So next we have the Philadelphia Eagles, and they need a wide receiver. I think here at this point, there's still Jerry Jeudy on the board. There's, of course, Justin Jefferson on the board, and they have been mocked to go with Justin Jefferson a lot. However, Jeudy is kind of just he's the alpha wide receiver still left on this board. On the other hand, though, I do think that Jeudy doesn't really fit in Philadelphia as well as Jefferson. I think the Jefferson Eagles thing was kind of just a match made in heaven because he plays in the slot, and they can benefit from a wide receiver in the slot. They got rid of Aguilar for a good reason because his hands were made of bricks, and they don't really have very many receivers left. I actually can't recall who they do have left. What's his name? I don't remember, but I definitely think that they can benefit from a guy like Justin Jefferson in the slot. So I think maybe I will go with Justin Jefferson here, but they have Alshon Jeffrey, that's his name, and Deshaun Jackson left. And if I'm not mistaken, Alshon Jeffrey doesn't really play in the slot. So I could definitely use a guy like Justin Jefferson, and so I think they go with Justin Jefferson here at this spot. So there they go. Next we have the Minnesota Vikings, and they need defense because they just got rid of Mackenzie Alexander and Trey Waynes, and Xavier Rhodes left to the Colts, so they don't have anything in their secondary left. All they have left is basically just Anthony Harris and Harrison Smith back in the safety section. So I think they definitely need a wide receiver or a corner here. But as you can see, the corners are kind of picked off the board. They do have Jalen Johnson down here, but I think they could sit on him for a little bit. So I think they end up going with Jerry Jeudy out of Alabama. No idea how he dropped this far. I think teams just didn't really need him as much. The Eagles definitely need a wide receiver, and I could have gone with Jerry Jeudy for them, but I personally, knowing the Eagles, think that they could benefit from Jefferson more than Jeudy because Jefferson has quite a high ceiling, especially being one of the receivers who solely plays in the slot, and he can develop more, I feel like, but Judy's more of that complete player. So I think the Vikings could definitely benefit from a Jerry Jeudy here, so I think they're going to go with Jerry Jeudy. Next we have the New England Patriots, and this is the part that scares me, and this is the part that I normally would, what am I trying to say? If I was able to trade in this draft, I would absolutely have a team jump ahead of the Patriots who need a quarterback and lap them to Herbert. But in this draft, I mean, Herbert's very clearly the number one QB left. He's fallen from his projected spot, which was the Chargers at 6, all the way down to 23. And I think Belichick might like to have another quarterback that he can develop using whatever he used to develop Brady and whatever magic he used, and he could turn Herbert into a monster in a few years. So I think that the Patriots do go with Justin Herbert. However, I do think that a team will lap them if he is still left on the board. I have no doubts in my mind that a team will go up and get him ahead of them, because I don't think any team or anyone left in, any fan or any team organization would like to have a player like Justin Herbert fall this far on the board and have it land in Belichick's arms. So I don't think that's going to happen. I definitely think that Herbert will go there. If no trades happen, Herbert, without a doubt, will go there. Next up, we have the Saints. The Saints here definitely need a linebacker. That's one of the only holes they have left on their lineup. They say they need a cornerback and wide receiver, but they have Lattimore and they have Thomas, so they're chilling in that section. They don't really need a wide receiver too either, because they have Emmanuel Sanders now, and they also have what's his name, Ted Ginn. They don't need either. They don't need a wide receiver at all. They could take a corner, but the corners are starting to fall and there aren't many left, so I think they definitely here go with Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. Patch up their linebacker need there, and so that fits pretty well for them. For the Vikings, they need a corner. It's pretty obvious. Corners are starting to fall. I originally, a while ago, before the Diggs trade happened, 25, people were definitely saying Trevon was going to hop on over to Minnesota. But at this point, I just don't see that happening whatsoever. So that's just completely scratched off the mind. But I do think Jalen Johnson is a good corner that's still left on the board. He's probably the best, as it shows on the Draft Network's rankings. They do definitely they look pretty accurate to me, so I'm definitely going to go with Jalen Johnson here out of Utah. So the Vikings ended up with Jerry Jeudy and Jalen Johnson, which is a nice first round draft for them without trading. So it definitely Jeudy fell into their hands somehow, which I just don't understand, but that just happens. So Dolphins here, they need interior offensive line, and like I said earlier, the perfect interior offensive lineman fell right into their hands in Cesar Ruiz. So, without a doubt in my mind, I'm going to go with Cesar Ruiz here out of Michigan. I think they need him. And they already patched up their top 3 needs, so they're sitting pretty right now. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks. They need an edge rusher, and would you look who's still on the board? Don't know how he fell this far, because he is a monster, and he should not be left this far. I don't think the Seahawks they do need him. They very much need him. But I think Clowney's going to come back. That's just what I think. Clowney's going to go back there. There were talks about Everson Griffin going there, but I don't think that's happening. I think just as a backup, just as a final Hail Mary, I think they go with K'Lavon Chaisson. I don't think at all it's a bad choice, bad draft pick whatsoever. It's an amazing draft pick if it's anything. The Seahawks absolutely go with K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU. He has an extremely high ceiling, and I definitely think he'll fit in well there. I will be right back. I need to do something, and I'll come right back. All right, coming back to this. Next, we have the Baltimore Ravens, and they need a linebacker, and perfectly lined up for them is linebacker out of LSU, Patrick Queen. He's a great linebacker, especially at this point in the draft. A lot of people had him going to the Saints. I can see that happening, but I think it's kind of a two-way tie between Kenneth Murray and Patrick Queen. I can see the Saints going with either, but since he fell this far, I definitely think the Ravens will pick him up. Next, we have the Tennessee Titans, who need an edge rusher, I think a perfect fit right here for them is Yetur Gross-Matos out of Penn State. He's really very, very good edge rusher. People have him going a lot higher in the draft. I agree with that in some senses, but I think he's a good fit there in Tennessee, where they just made a big old run for the Super Bowl and didn't quite make it. But I think he's a good fit in Tennessee. So yeah. Next, we have the Packers. Hate the Packers, but they need a wide receiver, and best wide receiver available for them is Denzel Mims out of Baylor. He's very fast and he's very tall. So being 6'3" and being that tall and weighing 206 pounds, he's a really good wide receiver. He could work on his route running a little more. He's got decent hands, but drops he definitely needs to work on. But that's what the NFL is for. They come to help you. He's been in the green and gold at Baylor, so I think he'll fit seamlessly in Green Bay. So I think they'll go with Denzel Mims here. And I did hear that he was a Vikings fan too, so he might be upset about that, but whatever. So So up next we have the Niners, who are back on the clock, and they need some help on the wide receiver area. They made it to the Super Bowl with Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, but I think they could use another wide receiver since the loss of Emmanuel Sanders. They could have a nice wide receiver to pair up with Deebo as they grow together. So I think a good fit for them would be Jalen Reagor out of TCU. He's extremely quick, and he's not all that tall of a player, but the speed makes up for it. He's a very good deep threat, and I think they could definitely snag him and have a nice time with him on their team. So yeah, I think they'll go with Jalen Reagor out of TCU. And next up we have the Kansas City Chiefs. They need corners. There's a corner on the board, decently high, but in this draft it's very short, and interior offensive linemen, there are not a lot of them, and a lot of teams need them. I do like Netane Moody, but I think for the Chiefs, the corners are running low, but I'm gonna have them take Noah Igbenogany out of Auburn. He's a good corner. He fits their need. He'll do well over in Kansas City with the Super Bowl champions. So next up, the Bengals. They need an edge rusher as their next team need. I'm doing this mostly off of team needs because, of course, I don't know every single team and I don't know every single lineup with every single man on the roster. So I'm doing it based off team needs for some situations. I think they could definitely use an edge rusher here, as what it says. And on the board, there's still a guy who I could have seen go way earlier than this pick. But I'm going to have the Cincinnati Bengals take A.J. Epinesa out of Iowa. He's a really nice edge rusher, and he's the first pick in the second round. I think he honestly could have gone way earlier than this pick, but it's a good pick for the Bengals. I mean, they've already had a good draft so far with the number one quarterback in the draft and the Heisman winner in Joe Burrow, and now they have A.J. Epinesa on the defense. For the Colts, I think at this spot the value of Jordan Love is extremely. It's really nice to have Jordan Love be here, and then he kind of just fell right into the lap of the Colts. Normally he'd be gone by now. If I would have picked Herbert for the Chargers way at the beginning, then the Patriots would never have got him. But I think that the Colts can take a quarterback here, and I think their quarterback of the future behind Phillip Rivers once he retires or whatever he may do is Jordan Love, and I think they could develop him behind Phillip Rivers nicely as he is a veteran, and he could grow behind him. So I think the Colts get a steal in Jordan Love in the second pick of the second round. So yeah. Next up we have the Lions. They could use an edge rusher here, but they do need interior defensive line. There is Neville Gallimore here. Neville Gallimore is a really good interior defensive lineman out of Oklahoma. He's a big guy, very big guy. Let's see, 6'2", 304. He's a big boy, and I think he would fit really well, especially with a team like the Lions. They would use him perfectly, especially with Matt Patricia. Being the defensive guy he is, I think he could develop Neville Gallimore into something special. So, I think Neville Gallimore is a good spot. The Lions are a great fitting place for Neville Gallimore. So I think they go with Neville Gallimore here out of Oklahoma. Next up, we have the New York Giants, and they need a linebacker. They could have gone with Isaiah Simmons way back in the beginning, but they ended up going with an offensive tackle to protect Daniel Jones. So I think they could go with a linebacker here. but looking at the board, I don't really see too many of them. I don't really know where the next one is. Let's see. It is Willie Gay. So all of the linebackers they're gone. Willie Gay is a pretty good prospect, though. I have seen a little bit of him, a little bit of his highlights. He's a pretty good player, but I don't think they end up going with him in the end here. I think that the Giants need an edge rusher, as it says, too, and I think that they settle with Zach Bond from Wisconsin. I think that he fits nicely with them. They need an edge rusher. They ended up getting what they needed, and Zach Bond's a great player. He could fit in perfectly with New York, and So next up we have the Chargers, who are quarterbackless right now, and at this point they do need a quarterback. Jacob Eason's a great quarterback. Jalen Hurts, I really like Jalen Hurts, by the way. I'm a big fan of him, but they don't really, they need a quarterback, and I think, I kind of screwed them over, didn't I? Yeah. I think they can wait on the quarterback position for now. I think that they have plenty of time for that. So I think they end up going with A.J. Terrell out of Clemson here to beef up that secondary a little more, especially with, Derwin James and those guys back in the backfield. They can use a guy like A.J. Terrell to help them out. Next up, we have the Panthers, who also need a corner, but corner and the linebacker are both kind of picked over. Not a lot of interior offensive linemen on this board here, but I think they might end up having to go with Lloyd Cushenberry, who is he's a good interior offensive lineman. Not the greatest, but I definitely think they could go with him. That's something to put in consideration. But Trevon Diggs is also still on board here. You know what? Yeah, I think they go with Trevon Diggs here. I think the Panthers take Trevon Diggs out of Alabama. Solid corner. The corners are not extremely deep in this draft, but I think there's enough of them that teams could settle off with them pretty well. So I think Trevon Diggs goes to the Carolina Panthers. Next up, another Dolphins pick here. Dolphins have filled a lot of their needs, and luckily for them, they needed a safety up next. And looking at the board here, we got Antoine Winfield out of Minnesota, who's still on the board, and I don't think he'll be there much longer. So I think to patch up their safeties position and pair up with their new cornerback Byron Jones in their secondary, I think they take Antoine Winfield out of Minnesota to stack up the rest of their draft. So now looking back, they have Winfield, Cesar Ruiz, Josh Jones, and Tua. So they have a very good draft going for them so far. And next up, we have the Houston Texans. They need an edge rusher. They got rid of their first rounder, I believe, unless I'm just stupid. Yeah, I don't think they have a first rounder. So this is their first pick in the draft, and they need honestly anything on the board right now. They do need an edge rusher. I think they can wait on the edge position for now. So I think they just go with the best interior defensive lineman on the board, which happens to be Ross Blacklock out of TCU. He's a great player. Not a surprise that he was drafted here. He had a nice combine. He's a big boy as well, so he'll fit in nicely. Next, we got the Browns. They need an offensive tackle. Looking at the board here, they still got Isaiah Wilson still on here. Quite a few picks after I picked Josh Jones over him for the Dolphins, which was all the way down here actually. So I definitely think that after the Browns took Isaiah Simmons, a linebacker out of Clemson, I think they can bounce back after missing the offensive tackle race to the Jets for Mekhi Becton. I think they can replace that position with Isaiah Wilson, who's a nice fit in there out of Georgia. Surprised he fell this far, but not at the same time. So, next we got the Jags. Jags, they could use. Let's see, who do we have on the cornerback board here? Yeah, Damon Arnett is the highest ranked one currently. I don't think you know what? I think they could use. They have their quarterback of the future in. Why am I blanking on Gardner Minshew? They have their quarterback of the future in Gardner Minshew. They're chilling with him. I think they just keep stacking up their wide receivers. They have what's his name? I keep forgetting the names and I feel awful about it. But the guy who did really well last season for the Jags, their wide receiver. Why am I forgetting his name? I can see his face. Whatever, you know who I'm talking about. You'll figure it out. But I think they placed T. Higgins with him very well. T. Higgins is a big target at 6'4". He can go up and get it. He's got hops. He's basically got everything. He can do it right for them. And yeah. Next up, we got the Bears with their first pick. I believe that this is the draft. This is the year 2020 when they got Khalil Mack from the Raiders, and they gave them this first-round pick for 2020. So they need some help right now. There's not a lot of options on the board here for what they need, but I think they end up going with Jeremy Chin out of Southern Illinois, their safety. It's just the best available for them. Jeremy Chin's a great player. He can patch up their safety position nicely, help out in the backfield there. Next, we got the Colts, and with the Colts here, they do need a wide receiver, and I think they should take one at this point. There's a nice set of them right here, and I think they go with Laviska Shenault out of Colorado. I think that he originally, right at the beginning, I believe that he was, viewed as a top 5 wide receiver in the draft, and he slowly fell down the board. But I think that he still has an amazing upside, and he's quick. So I think he'll still end up going higher than other wide receivers. But I do think that he will go to the Colts, and he'll fit nicely next to T.Y. Just giving Phillip Rivers another target alongside T.Y., so that'll be nice for him. Next we have the Buccaneers, and nicely for them, there are some offensive tackles up here that are really nice. One of them being Ezra Cleveland, who's very good offensive tackle prospect, and I think they need to protect Tom Brady, being as old as he is. If he gets sacked one too many times, then maybe he'll be out. So they got to protect him. Perfect fit for them. Ezra Cleveland out of Boise State. They'll keep Tom Brady nice and protected. Next up, we got the Denver Broncos on the clock. They need a corner. They also could use an offensive tackle, and the corners are kind of, there are some corners that are lower down on the board. I'm not sure if they have another second-round pick. I don't think they do. So I think that they end up actually going for a corner here. And you know what? What are the tackles looking like here? Okay, the tackles are all right. Let's see the corners here. Okay, it's about the same then, I guess. I definitely think that Amik Robertson is. I like Amik Robertson. He's definitely further down here. I think they could take him later on in the draft. So I think for now they take Austin Jackson at USC. He'll be a nice he can defend Drew Lock for the future, as he is slinging the ball down to Henry Ruggs and Courtland Sutton. So next we have the Falcons, who are also back on the clock, and they need interior defensive line. And Marlon Davidson is still here after a while, and I think they could use him perfectly on their team. So Marlon Davidson out of Auburn is the pick here. Next we have the Jets, who do need a wide receiver and an edge rusher, and there are still a bunch of wide receivers that they could use any of these guys and develop them into beasts. So I think for now, I'm not really sure what picks they have, but for the future. But I definitely think there are some wide receivers that, you know what, they should snag a wide receiver here, because let's see the edge class. Yeah, the edges are slowly wisping away, and I actually do think Terrell Lewis he's a very nice player still left on the board here, and I think in the end the Jets will go with Terrell Lewis here, but just for the sake of the Jets fans, I think they do go with KJ Hamler out of Penn State to fill their wide receiver need, just to give Darnold another target to pass to. So next is the Steelers. I think this is their first pick at the draft. Yes, it is. They could use a lot of positions here. They need interior defensive line. Justin Madubuike is still there, and I do like Justin Madubuike a lot. So at the same time though, there's not a lot of interior offensive linemen in this class. And Lloyd Cushenberry's there. You know, I'm gonna say that the Steelers end up taking Justin Madubuike out of Texas A&M to beef up their defensive line a little bit, and yeah, he's a nice fit there for them. Bears are back on the clock. Interior offensive line is what they need. Lucky for them, they got Lloyd Cushenberry here. He's just sitting there waiting for someone to draft him, and this is a perfect spot. So I say they go with him out of LSU. He's a great offensive lineman. I think he'll fit in nicely with the Bears. You know, he'll be. You know, they could possibly use him at center, I suppose. Otherwise, they can do whatever they want with him. Could use him at guard. You know, anything they want, I guess. I'm not really sure their needs are, because I don't focus on the Bears that much. So I think, you know, he'll be a nice fit there. So yeah, I think now next up we have the Cowboys, and they need more defense. And gosh, I think falling this far, I think Terrell Lewis just needs to go. So I think that the Cowboys do need a replacement for Byron Jones, though. And Damon Arnett is pretty nice too. I see him over there. I'm gonna say the Cowboys go with Terrell Lewis here. They can use more defense on the defensive line, and you know, they can use him however they want, and he'll be a nice fit there. So with the Rams, their first pick of the draft as well, and they need a linebacker, and linebackers are falling short in this draft. They also need edge rushers, but Terrell Lewis just came out, so I think that I think the Rams will actually end up going with Arnett here from Ohio State. He's the best player on their needs that's sitting on the board at the top, so I think they end up going with Damon Arnett out of Ohio State here to beef up their secondary a little bit. Next we have the Eagles. The Eagles here are in a rough spot because their needs are all picked over. Ashton Davis is here. They could use Ashton Davis out of California, but I think they might end up going with Jordan Brooks down here out of Texas Tech. They could use a linebacker, and you know, in his picture, Jordan Brooks looks about as mean as a Philly or as an Eagles fan, so I think he'll fit perfectly there for them. So Jordan Brooks is going to the Eagles out of Texas Tech. Next we have the Bills. This is their first pick in the draft after losing their first rounder at 22 to get Stephon Diggs from Minnesota. So I think this late in the draft, they need a running back. They did draft Singletary, but I think their other needs are kind of just out the window now, and I think at this late in the draft, it'd be a good time to start drafting running backs, especially ones of this caliber like J.K. Dobbins. So I think that the Bills end up drafting J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. He's a great running back. I watched some of his clips. He's got some Saquon thighs. He's a big running back, and he can juke out anyone. So I think he's a perfect fit there for them. Just make their offense a little more deadly as it already is. I got the Ravens back on the clock. They could use a wide receiver here. I think they end up going with one here. So I'm going to say they go with Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. He's fallen pretty far down in the draft here. And I think, he'll fit just fine with them right next to Hollywood Brown. As a deep threat, they can use Ayuk however they want. You can use him in the slot. You can do whatever. He's a pretty good yak, so they could use him. They could use him with Lamar and keep that offense rolling. So I think they go with Brandon Ayuk out of Arizona State. Now the Dolphins are back on the clock. They need an edge rusher, but they do also need a running back. And on the clock or on the board is still Jonathan Taylor, who's been here for a while. I think he's a really, really good running back. I think that he's in that top 3 tier with DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins. But I think, he's rightfully where he is, being drafted 3rd behind the other 2. So I think that, he will end up going to the Dolphins just to make their offense a little more deadly. So now they have top 3 quarterback, top 3 running back. They got a nice setup there for their offense, just to build off of already. So they're looking nice there. Next we have the Rams, and they need a linebacker, and it's getting about the time where Willie Gay is a good spot to be drafted. So in the end, I do think they do draft Willie Gay Jr. out of Mississippi State just to fit their team needs a little bit better. The best edge rusher coming up next is Curtis Weaver. He's not awful in the slightest, but these other guys, Okwara is pretty good too. There are some rushers on here that they could go for in the future later on in the draft that they could go with, such as Nick Coe as well. He's pretty good. I do think that they actually take Willie Gay here out of Mississippi State to fill that linebacker need. Next up, we got the Vikings. In my opinion, I do think that the Vikings don't need an edge rusher right now, just simply because we have, what am I trying to say? We have Everson Griffin is still in free agency, and I don't think he's opposed to returning back to the Vikings, and no team really needs one that bad right now that don't think they can get one in the draft, aside from the Seahawks. But I think that the Seahawks are, I think in my opinion that the Seahawks will bring Jadeveon Clowney back. So if that's the case, then, Everson Griffin's still going to be sitting there in free agency. So I think that the Vikings will scoop him back up, and he would be glad to return back on a lower contract, obviously, so that he can help them win, which would be amazing. And if that's the case, then you still got that combo of Everson Griffin and what's his name? God, I'm stupid. Danielle Hunter, the 2 rushers, Pro Bowl rushers on the edges, and it'll be wonderful to have them still on the team together. So I don't think they need an edge rusher whatsoever here. They could double up on wide receiver. They do need offensive line, but I think there is some interior offensive line. At this point, I think that they should go for Netane Moody back later on in the draft, or someone like Stenberg or Biedish or something like that. They can fit perfectly here in Minnesota. But I do think, in my eyes, I think it would be kind of smart to double down on a wide receiver. Although we do have Jeudy and Thielen. They do have Jeudy and Thielen. I think it would be smarter if they doubled down on a wide receiver, just in case maybe Jeudy doesn't pull out as something that he might not come out as something that he actually is. That or BC might not come up to the guy that we think he is. So in this situation, we don't need interior defensive line. We just got nose tackle Michael Pierce from the Ravens. So I think that we end up doubling down on wide receiver. And Michael Pittman is the best wide receiver left here. And 6'4", he's a big target. It's perfect. I think that the Vikings go with Michael Pittman Jr. out of USC. Next, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who do need interior offensive line. Jonah Jackson is here on the board. Lucas Niang is here they could use. Chase Claypool is even here. They could go for another big receiver who dominated the combine just like DK. Their wide receivers are quite nice, but I think they could use another one. And I think this is really hard. I think they can find. They have the 64th pick. I think they can chill out on offensive line for now and take their man Chase Claypool here out of Notre Dame, the big star at the combine who lit it up, just like DK did the past year. Next we have the Ravens, who need interior offensive line. Jonah Jackson still on the board out of Ohio State. I think they just settle with him at this point. It's just the best available. So Jonah Jackson goes to the Baltimore Ravens. Next we have the Tennessee Titans, who need interior defensive line. And it's just setting up nicely for them with Raekwon Davis out of Alabama. Falling this low, I mean, it's kind of a nice spot for him. So I think that Raekwon Davis does go to Tennessee. Out of Alabama. Next we have the Packers. They need a tight end after losing what's his name? I'm blanking on names right now. The old bald guy that they had last season, who went to the Bears, I believe. It's not important. They need a tight end. Cole Kmet's on there. Very good tight end. There's a lot of tight ends on here. I think they do end up going with I think they go with Cole Kmet out of Notre Dame just to fill that tight end spot up a little better. Something that I've noticed with the Chiefs is, with the needs they have, Clyde Edwards-Helaire might be a good spot here for them. But safety is, they could still use a safety to pair next to Tyrann Mathieu. And looking right here, the fact that Kyle Duggar is still on the board is kind of just amazing to me. I don't think he should stay around for this long. In the end, I do think they need a running back, though. They do have Damian Williams, who is shaping up to be a good player, but I think they could use someone else just in case Damian Williams doesn't keep up with the progress that he's making. So I do think that the Chiefs will go with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of LSU. Last but not least, we have the Seattle Seahawks for the last pick in the second round, and I think they just need best player available for their team needs, and they end up going with offensive tackle Lucas Niang out of TCU. So this finalizes the draft here. This is our final draft board, that our results. I'll scroll through this very slowly so you can see. You can go ahead and, if anyone's watching this, you can consult me in the comments if I did anything wrong that you didn't like or something that you disagreed with. I would like to hear feedback. Actually, it'd be kind of nice because I want to know what other people think. I do think that this is controversial. People might think that I'm just like since I'm a Vikings fan, I'm biased and I want Jeudy because he's a better receiver, but that's not really true in the end. I mean, it sort of is. I would love to have Jeudy over Jefferson, but I do think the Eagles shape up to have Jefferson and use him the best. So, yeah, I'm just going to quickly scroll through the rest of this. So, this is my draft. You can let me know if you think I should have done something differently. I definitely think I could have improved on some things. I just went for most team needs. And, so you can let me know in the comments what I could have done better, what you liked, anything like that. But thank you all for watching my mock draft, and I will be doing one with trades right after this one. just to get a better view. So thank you guys for watching. See you guys later.